Hey, this is Tom Calvin. Thanks for tuning in to Tomorrow's Legends.
You think you know the story. You've heard it 100 times. But this is not the tale that you know, for this part of the story has yet to be written. Join Flash, Harley, and X-Force 11 as they take the Waverider into the near future and check in on some old friends. This is the new adventures of Superman and Lois, as chronicled by Tomorrow's Legends.
Yes, hello, Super Fam. Welcome back to Tomorrow's Legends. We are here in Smallville following the new adventures of Superman and Lois, like you just heard. We're on episode 12 already, called Through the Valley of Death. I am the returning Flash.
I'm Harley Quinn.
And I'm X-Force 11.
Hello, Legends.
Yes, well, look at the news going on here. Holy crap, X-Force, you got a lot for us. Let me get this going.
We interrupt this podcast for a special report.
All right. Yeah, what's going on?
So to kind of update you from what I told you on the last podcast is we have got some firmer dates. So this coming Sunday, the 18th, we've got Legends episode Bad Blood. Then Tuesday the 20th, we've got Superman and Lois Failsafe. Then we have repeats of both shows through August 1st. So it looks like they're not wanting to compete with the Olympics.
Right.
So it looks like no shows July 25th through the 7th. We'll find out for sure next week when the CW's PR calendar comes out. But I believe Legends will probably be back on the 8th and Stargirl and Superman and Lois on the 10th. But we'll let you know as soon as we get firm dates. But it looked like a little break for the Olympics.
That actually, I mean, it sucks because I hate hiatuses. I think I even bring it up tonight in the notes, but it works for me because I'm away on the holidays for an entire week in the last week of July, and if there is no shows, well, I don't have to miss out again. So that actually times out okay for us. But
times out okay for the two of you. I doubt I'll be back. The next week may be my last podcast.
Yeah, and that's the other end of it. It's getting really close for you. So yeah. Gonna hang on as long as you can, but yeah, it just sucks. You're gonna miss the finales.
Yep, not much I can do about that.
All right, well, we'll keep on top of that. But thanks for keeping track of it, X-Force.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so one more episode each, and then a break.
Mm-hmm.
Is the short and sweet of it. All right, let's get to our impressions of this episode. All right, kick it off, X-Force.
I gave this 9.5 families make all the difference. This episode was amazing for me. The writers paralleled the Kents and the Cushings and even a little bit the Irons family. And we had breakthroughs and much more. This is why this show is the new head of the universe. Loved it.
You're here.
Yes, I am pretty close up there with you. I gave this one 9 mysterious missions because I really, really enjoyed this episode, but it didn't hold all that many surprises. I mean, it held a few, but for the most part, I found kind of how the whole episode played out to be rather predictable, but I really enjoyed watching the story play out because it's so well written, it's so well acted, well directed. It's just such a stellar put together show that even though I was oh, I bet you this happens, oh, I bet you this happens, it still was such a great episode just to watch. It was fun to watch it all play out on scene. So
yeah, and I'm not disagreeing with you guys at all. I just didn't give it as high of a rating. I gave it an 8 superhero landings. So for me, it's just so nice to come back to a show that's actually really damn good. Do I really need to say anything else?
No.
Okay, I will. I'll say more. I'm only giving this an 8 And it's not because it wasn't epic and full of amazing moments, but what it did for me is it suffers from the same sped up solution strategy that the episode with the Kryptonian War did. They again tried to cram too much into this one, leaving it with jarring edits and jumps from scene to scene, leaving you feeling like you dozed off and missed a couple minutes of what got you from one scene to the next. This was not a situation that I felt needed a one episode fix, and it should have been stretched out further to at least 2 episodes. I think about all the buildup from Irons explaining what happened on his Earth to the whole plotline of the Kryptonian soul transfer device to the concern of what if Clark gets taken over to it actually happening. That's a whole lot to wrap up that should have taken more than 1 episode. So it kind of left me feeling as much with a dang, that's it reaction as a wow, holy crap reaction. Plus, it had the worst choreographed fights to date, I'm going to talk about it, and way too many superhero landings, hence my score there, giving it kind of an amateur feel that it just surprised me because it's not as polished as this whole season has been. But it's still Superman and Lois, and the performances of Bitsy and Tyler continue to astound me, and the epic scope of this show just leaves, like X-Force was saying, the rest of the DC shows in the desert dust.
All right.
So, let's get into it and talk about what we got.
All right. Well, I say we start with Clark / Superman. Now, like I said, much of it, especially his story elements, were a bit predictable for me, but I found all of it just like really satisfying. Now, one of the things that I definitely didn't see coming was the surprise that General Zod was the consciousness they put into him. Although I do remember it was a theory that someone threw out. I don't remember if it was one of us or a listener, but either way, that bit surprised me of all of the Clark stuff. So
That was little old me.
that was you. Yeah, it was a good one.
I didn't predict it. I posted it as a possibility. I gave it the what if it's Zod.
Yeah.
We all went, ooh, wow, imagine that. And so it was kind of fun that came through to fruition. Now, what wasn't predictable to me was how quick it all got solved, and I at least expected him, like Superman, to be turned for an episode and then have some epic fights. But, before they figure out how to save him, I wanted an entire episode of him being bad, him being, on the dark side and not in control of or not able to fight it. And then we get to see what happens. We see, see Irons fighting him, see even maybe Jordan run in there and have Superman smack him around a little bit and then realize, oh my God, I just hit my son. And I wanted to see some of that struggle, but it never came. So that's, a little bit of what bugged me.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Well, I'm not entirely convinced that we've seen the last of Zod on this show. And number 2, I'm not convinced that Clark is totally free of Zod's control. I believe that we will see Zod reassert his influence before the end of the season. So we've got a couple more episodes to go. We'll see if that actually happens. But I know we're not done with Zod. But I like you, I thought it was a little too easy this quick in one episode. So I'm thinking there's going to be some type of Zod reassert before the end of the season.
Okay. I got a point coming up later about Zod, so I'll hang on to that.
Yeah, I think I'm in that camp too. I don't think it's completely solved. I don't know exactly how it's going to come back along, but I'm not convinced that Zod has left Clark either. So we'll just have to see how that plays out.
Okay.
But at least for this episode, we knew, even though he said he would, we knew that Clark wasn't going to submit easily. And so I just love to see that he immediately is starting to fight back, because the way they left at the end of last episode, it definitely was kind of a bit of a cliffhanger, but kind of gave the impression that he had submitted and so that he got taken over quickly. So it was nice for me to see him, seeing him fighting back, And then I also loved him reaching out to the one person he knew would be able to hear him, like while he's trying to fight back, which was Jordan. So I thought that was a very cool touch.
Yeah, so going back to your first point, like I want to point out again how convincing Tyler Hoechlin is. He seemed in a lot of pain and was suffering and was really struggling in a fight for his soul. And I mean, it's hard. You got imagine the scene. You're sitting there on a sandy ground, and you're surrounded by a film crew and the director and everyone, and you're just on your hands and knees, and you're just going, oh, oh, oh. Like, not many people can really make that look good, and he did. It looked like he was getting, just tortured on the inside. And the guy's amazing. The guy really is impressing me with his ability this season for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was, I mean, the other part that I liked, it was really cool to see him gain enough strength in that struggle to escape for a moment when he took off from the cave and then crash landed outside to call out to Jordan. It was cool. It was cool that he was able to do that. But then I thought it's kind of lucky that just at that moment Jordan was trying to listen for him. Because I mean, would Jordan have heard him if he called out when he wasn't trying to hear him? Could Jordan have picked him out through all the noise if he wasn't practicing and trying? That's what I'm curious about. But I also wanted to point out, though, that I think this show has to be careful there with this whole super hearing conversation that they had going on, and having Edge be able to be part of it. It was like a three-way, conversation, because it could come off as telepathy instead. And they were dancing with losing it there. They were a bit on the edge. It was really neat. It's neat that you could see them focus on each other and talk to each other, but I think they have to be careful with how they present it, because it could come across as telepathy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see your point there.
Yeah.
I liked how Clark had plans to make sure his family was safe and get help. I loved him reaching out to Jordan. That was wonderful, even if Edge could hear. So I really like the fact that Clark has thought about these things and that he is doing his best to give his family and friends the edge in this situation. So I like that he's on top of strategy there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, give him the edge. Give him the edge over Edge. Gotcha.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. No, yeah. I like that he at least tried to reach out for some help. Although, because Edge can hear everything, as he lets them know, Zod, eventually does take over, in that, when they come to find Clark, that's not necessarily going to be who they meet. So, but the one who does kind of come to his rescue, I guess, which, again, we kind of all expected, we knew this was coming, was the confrontation with John Henry Irons. And so, I actually kind of liked this fight. I thought it was crazy just to kind of watch General Zod just completely give him a beat down. It's just because it was not going well for him for a little while there. But I kind of liked that he kind of came to his senses and used his hammer to basically bash him in the head a few times and try to shake him up to see if he could let Clark maybe come back to the surface if he could reach him a little bit. So I actually kind of liked that fight. So.
Yeah, well, you guys made me think of something before I respond with my other Zod comments. When you think about Superman calling out to Jordan, what I think, why we're all bringing it up as a moment we really liked, is because if you think about it, it's Superman. He's the greatest of the great. There is no other hero more powerful or better than him, whether it's in strength and powers and abilities, or in just being a good person. And yet he was able to be vulnerable enough to know he needs to call for help. He wasn't like we see most other superheroes go, I can do it on my own and I don't need help. Like we don't see them call out for help. But all the way down the line, even going all the way back to Oliver Queen, nobody calls out for help. And Superman was willing to be vulnerable enough to say, yeah, I need help right now, and call for it. So I thought that's really cool writing for the show.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, so Zod. I found when he was taken over by Zod, I found a couple of his lines hard to understand, and I even rewound it a couple times. There's still a couple words I'm missing, and it's a minor gripe, but Zod. And to me, that's a big deal. And you've got Zod. I mean, we all know Zod from the Superman movies. I think Smallville, he goes in it. Like, he is one of the main villains for Superman in the early goings of his storytelling. So this is a big deal on this show. But what bothered me is that he was in and out without much fuss in this episode. And I want to ask, is this the end of him for good? You brought it up already, Harley. Is this the end of Zod? You guys both think, no, he might come around somehow, but I want to counter that point with another possibility. Is this how the show is moving past old characters so that it can continue to write new paths for Superman to take? Because we've brought this up before with how this is uncharted territory, and they're either getting rid of old characters that we know or writing them off or killing them or whatever. Is this just that next step of evolution? Because it feels like that might be their intention. If this was, they like, here's Zod, yay, but guess what? We don't need him because you guys all know Zod. He's been here before. We're not going to use him. We're going to bring him in and give you the threat, but then deal with it and move forward. Now let's get to some bigger, badder enemies for Superman. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think I agree. I like that they are kind of turning people and villains that we know on their head, but I don't think that they are going to totally get rid of him but I just think they're not going to make him pulled in the first season to be the big bad, because that would be too much too soon. Yeah. And they're trying to do new things with this first season and introduce things. So I'm thinking that, we may see down the road that he's going to fully be the big bad of a season. But I think it's just to kind of introducing the lore and the different take on things. So, like I said, I think they're doing something new, but I think we will see him down the road in further seasons.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, Zod is Zod. It'd be cool if they include him here, but I just wondered if maybe they feel like they don't need him. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. All right. So the fight stuff. If anything was ever going to come out of Superman and Lois that gives me one of these,
form of water.
It's not that the scenes weren't cool. It's how poorly executed and cheesy looking I thought the fights were this episode. I think it's the worst we've gotten out of the show so far, because they have been so good, whether it was fast action or super slow motion, they have been so good at choreographing it to make it look ultra realistic and impactful, and like, holy cow, we can feel the hits that Superman is laying out. But here it looked like they didn't know what they were doing and had to make cuts at the moments of impact so that they didn't have to show anything. And I'll give you a couple examples. When at the very end, when after the explosion of the missile and Edge falls to the ground and we see Superman come down and Edge is trying to plead to him, brother, I could have saved you, and you see Superman punch him. It's like the camera's looking up at Tyler's looking down the camera, and he swings to make a punch, and then there's a sharp cut, and then you see Edge just knocked out. So where's the actual hit? Where's the motion? Where's the connection? Where's the impact of that? You don't see it. That's real amateur. And then another one is the hammer to the head when Irons is fighting him and Superman is on top of him. You see Irons reach out for the hammer and it flies to him a la Thor. And you see him kind of not even really swing. It's almost like he just places the hammer on the side of Superman's head, and then then it's another hard cut and Superman goes flying back. I'm like, where's the swing? Where's the impact? Again, where is the connection to make us feel that shot? And again, it's they're missing something here, and I don't know, like both were like stop motion and didn't convey force or sense of wham bam like we've been getting. It's like the fighting guys, the choreography guys were on holidays for this episode. I don't know. So that's how, if you guys watch those scenes, you'll understand what I'm pointing out, because we have not had that all season. It's been so good. And like I made a joke of the superhero landings, I think we got Superman flying in and landing on one bent knee 5 or 6 times this episode. How many times do we need to see that? It's like they have nothing else to do, and they want to just keep showing that over and over again, and it kind of felt repetitive. So there you go. That's my beef.
He's got it out of his system.
There you go. I don't notice the choreography stuff. I've said it 1,000 times on this podcast. But I don't know. The superhero landings don't really bother me. That's just his signature style. That's just kind of how I see it. But that's me.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I think it's just if they overuse it, then it takes away the cool factor of his superhero landing. So I just want them to not use it so much. Once or twice and show the impact of it is really cool, but over and over and over again, it's like, can you show him landing a different way? I mean, does he always have to, like, when he flies down to see his family again, does he have to do the superhero landing? Can he just come in gently and scoop them up or something? Or, Anyway, let's move on to Lois. I got a couple points here about Lois because I think Bitsy really brought the emotion this episode, and I mean, wow. Because the whole episode was just getting worse and worse for her. It was like she was the only one fighting to believe Superman could pull out of it, and nobody was believing her. No one was listening to her. No one was trusting her faith in her husband, and that's the whole thing, because her whole life is him. It's her husband. It's her partner in life. It's the father of her kids, and she's losing the chance to save him because no one has faith in him like she does, and I felt so much for her. Her performance, it just, oh my God, it pulled on the heartstrings.
Yeah, she was great.
Yeah, it was really good. I mean, she's just stepped up so much this season, and I think just seeing her in different situations and seeing her acting in different things this season, we have just seen her grow so much, and it just is all leading up to this and gives that believability and weight when she does talk to people and pleads with people. So I just really appreciate what she's brought so far this season.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I know this leads into our favorite scene, so we don't have to talk too much about it, but I was kind of half surprised she told Irons the whole secret identity thing. Because,
I wasn't.
yeah, like, that's why I say half surprised. The way the episode was going, I saw that she had to tell him, but I was surprised that she was willing to give out the identity, because this show has been so good at keeping their secret. Like, we've joked about the Flash, how everybody in the Central City knows the Flash. So it just surprised me from that aspect. And not like, because the way I looked at it, the way she told him is because it was kind of her last desperate plea to save him, because all other avenues she had tried have failed, and she was at her wit's end. And I think she thought that this was the one thing that she had in her back pocket that could save him. And
I agree.
What surprised me, though, is that Irons didn't even budge. He just says no. And I was like, okay, you big jerk. I thought you were here to help. And, and we'll talk a little bit more about him later on. It just surprised me, like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah. And I appreciated how Lois went to her journalism training to get info from the Cushings and bring the facts to her dad and to Irons. I mean, she was emotionally wrung out, stressed, fighting, but she still showed strength and drive to fight for her family. And I just loved how they showed that you can be dealing with emotions and dealing with so much stress, and yet you can have strength in the midst of that and fight for it, and it not be just a total weakness, but you can use that and bring that strength in. So I really appreciated that.
Yeah, strength of character, strength of resolve. Lois has been through a lot, and I think what's great about this series is we're at a point now in their story together. Lois has been with Superman, been with Clark for like 20 years, so she gets these situations, and she's got that experience built up to be able to fight through these things.
Definitely.
All right, well, let's move on to Jonathan. I have, just like one point for sure that I wanted to bring up with him, and just it kind of continues this theme where he's like really standing up like for his family, but he's also standing up to some very powerful men. Like first he kind of stands up to his grandpa, which I'm sure was no easy thing to do, and now he's standing up to John Henry, who's equally as intimidating, if not more so, because he's not related to him at all.
Yeah.
So I liked that slowly but surely the Kents are kind of starting to wear John Henry down, because like Lois kind of tells him who he is, trying to sway him, and he doesn't seem to budge. But I think as he keeps hearing more about things, we see he eventually does the right thing and tries to save Clark. So I liked this bit.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think it was Jonathan that really got to him in the end there. 'Cause it seemed like Lois didn't get through to him at all, which surprised me, like I said. But as Jonathan was talking to him, you could see tears actually starting to well up in Iron's face there after Jonathan was there. Actually, while he was talking and after he left, you could see his eyes were pretty watery. And I thought, ooh, yeah. Jonathan said the right thing. That whole dad stuff worked.
Yeah.
And he did good this episode. Jonathan did so good. He pushed Jordan to keep working at the hearing thing, and then he stood up to the adults because they're being blind. Like he had a strong part to play in this episode, even though he's just a teenager with no powers. I think he did well.
Yeah, I keep being impressed by Jonathan's combination of his mother's drive and love of family and his dad's strength and desire for justice and what's right. And the actor Jordan is doing a great job playing Jonathan, and I just appreciate how even in real life he is pumping up the other actors in the midst of things. And so he's taking what's really his personality in real life and applying that to his character on the show, and it shows really well.
Yeah, I totally like how you worded that.
Yeah, for sure. I'm definitely enjoying his parts of all the episodes. All right, well, let's move on to Jordan. And we don't have to go too in-depth on this because I think it's going to come back around later. But just one point that I wanted to just bring up was that I noticed that he felt so guilty and responsible for Edge capturing his dad, which is interesting. I mean, I know he's kind of struggling with being super himself, but he's not quite to their level. Whether or not he will be, I don't know. I think that's still up for debate. But I definitely think it was motivation for him to continue boosting his efforts to try and hear where his dad might be, to kind of hone the hearing skill that he only just now got to stop giving him migraines and stuff. So I thought that was good.
Yeah, I liked that he admitted that he just got to the point that he could stop the migraines from hearing everything. I like that came up because that shows, okay, things have evolved since we last saw him struggling with it. And he feels helpless even with powers, because I think he expects too much of himself before getting the experience that he needs to be able to fight back against people that have had powers for their entire life. So this is Jordan's growth, the path that he's on. So but teenagers, they all think they can run the world, and so he's getting put down a little bit here. Is a little bit of humble pie is what he's eating.
Yeah. And I'm going to leave my thoughts for the favorite scene. So.
All right. Precursor.
Good.
So next up, we've got the Cushing family, and they are being blamed by almost everyone in the town for what happened. And while this could force them apart, they each took conscious efforts to pull together and become stronger as a family. And I'm not saying that we're out of the woods yet, but they have taken great steps in moving forward together. And so I just really appreciated that they each made those choices and that they each were there to kind of encourage and support each other.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the town is absolutely looking for someone to blame, and Kyle's the only one there because Edge kind of got outed and now he's gone. Just off, not even pretending to need to be Morgan Edge really anymore, at least not at this point. But I also really enjoyed the family bonding moments that we get to see, because I think this is ultimately going to bring the family a little bit closer together. So, which is something they needed.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and for me, I so agreed with Kyle and was getting equally pissed off with the town and the people like he was. I'm just thinking, seriously, people, You really have the nerve to say those things to a family that was manipulated just as badly as you were and also had the same things happen to them. You've been through this together, a family you've known for your whole life, a lot of them, and you choose to have no sympathy or understanding because you're so small and kind of pitiful yourself. It made me so mad. I just could not believe the town was reacting like this. And I would have exploded like Kyle. Like, how dare you? But here's the thing. Like, I really did like their scenes for them as a family, because in this show we are following the Kents as one family and we're following the Cushings as another family on this show. And I loved all of these moments and all of these scenes they got to have together. Like you guys were saying, they stick together through this turmoil without it pulling them apart. But I have to say that I kind of thought the big water fight, laughter moments and stuff was so out of place in this otherwise really tense episode, and it kind of stole too much time away from what should have been all about the fight to save Superman. I think this Cushing stuff could have been left for another episode to dive into, because it just didn't fit. It was really jarring to go from this tense, holy crap, Superman's almost turning evil, to la da 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 da, happy singing moments with a water fight. It was a weird oil and water mix for me. So,
yeah, I think, like you were saying, Flash, that if they had extended this fight and this battle for Superman over more than one episode, I think then you might have enjoyed it a bit more. For me, I enjoyed it. I think we needed a pause to not get so ramped up and overhyped, and to bring it down a little bit, and just to see, the contrast, because like I said, we're paralleling the two families, and you have this family finding joy in the midst of adversity, paralleling with the Kents who are facing so much trouble. So I think they were doing that on purpose. But once again, I think if they had split it out into 2 episodes, it would have been less, maybe, less jarring for you, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I said. But, I mean, it was still good. Don't get me wrong. It was still really good. I'm enjoying the Cushing stuff. It just was not in this episode belonging there, I don't think. But anyway, that's just me.
All right, well, another scene that I liked in particular was when Lois kind of questions the Cushings. You can tell that she's looking for any answers, and we happen to learn that they experienced some very different takeovers, and I thought this was really interesting. So Lana, she completely submitted willingly, and she remembers nothing of being taken over, nothing at all. She was kind of, to me, it seemed like she was completely pushed down kind of out of her own body's consciousness, so that Clark Kal-El, his mom, could, take over. And she remembered a thing. Yeah. But Kyle, on the other hand, he kind of remembered bits and pieces, because I think he was still fighting. He was fighting to hold on to his family, and he wasn't really ready to completely submit and lose himself in this whole process. So I liked to see the differences between the two.
Yeah, that was cool to find out. Depending on whether you submitted or whether you submitted or not, it affected how much you remembered. And this was the one important moment of the Cushings, I thought, that should have been the only scene for them in this episode, because it gave Lois the info she needed to go find a solution to save Superman, and to give her that last little bit of hope that there is a chance. And that was the scene, I think, that was key for the Cushings. And it was cool to see that, depending on how much you submitted, gave way to how much you could remember. So it's cool.
Yeah. It was really good. I really appreciated that, and how it gave insight, and it gives a lot larger insight to the town too, because here they were fighting for their memories and failing, so it gives you insight to why they're feeling so betrayed, because they were fighting so hard and yet were being taken over. So yeah.
Yep.
Well, moving on to Sam Lane. So I appreciated Sam in this episode. I mean, he was between a rock and a hard place. He had to weigh the needs of and the protection of the world over his son-in-law and his daughter. He had to make hard choices. Did I agree with how he did it? No. But I understood. And I also loved that at the end he made amends with Clark and Lois. And so I appreciated and liked his character a little more in this episode than I have in others. Still not a fan of how he's doing everything, but I have a greater understanding of him.
Yeah, I mean, what bugged me is that he still wasn't listening to Lois at all. I mean, he even went behind her back to okay the killing of Superman. He wasn't taking her experience in what Clark can withstand seriously. And so I was on the fence, off the fence, on the fence, with him. I was like, I hate you. No, you're good. Oh, I hate you. No, I understand you. But he was presented nicer this time. He was presented in a way that he's, like you kind of said, he's struggling with his own internal decisions that he has to make here. Whereas earlier in the season, when we were like, oh, this guy's going to be a villain, he's going to be a bad guy, he was all out to stop Superman or have defenses set up against him, whatever. And here you could see the struggle. So it made us be able to connect or relate to him a little bit better. And yeah, that last scene in the kitchen, I've actually got something coming up, so I'll save a couple more thoughts for that when he gets here.
All right. Well, then let's jump into John Henry Irons, because we've got quite a few points we can talk about with him. Now, to start it off, at one point, I think we all questioned what he was up to, and I liked that they gave us that answer at the beginning of this episode. As it turns out, he seems to be looking for his sister's doppelganger, which I found interesting.
Yeah, no, I like how this episode picks up seconds after the last one. Well, it actually goes back a few minutes before the last episode ending to show us where Irons was and why he wasn't there for the big Kryptonian War episode. And makes me want to yell, stop with the hiatus junk, because if we had gotten to watch this episode right after the last one, I think it would have been a 2-part flowing amazing episode. So like we would have gotten way more dramatic effect if we could have watched them back to back. But I like, because remember mostly me was complaining, why wasn't Irons part of the big war episode? This makes no sense at all. At least they gave us a response to that is okay enough story-wise to make sense. I mean, how does he know a war's going on? He's tracking down his sister. But now, his sister doppelganger, like you said, Harley, of this Earth. I'm like, does Irons have a sister? So I had to look her up, do some Googling to find out if that is actually a thing in the comics. And it kind of sort of is. He doesn't have a sister, but his brother Clay has a daughter named Natasha, not Irons. So it's his niece in the comics. And I didn't go too deeply into Natasha's story, but Natasha does eventually take on the mantle of steel for a while, and she actually develops superpowers. But as her story goes on, her powers get altered somehow. She gets involved in some type of, chemical-based accident of some kind, but her powers get altered, and she now gains some type of mist powers, like being able to control the mist and the rain, maybe similar to Storm of the X-Men, I don't know, but her new name becomes Vaporlock. I was like, okay, so there's some history. So this show is taking that and writing it a bit differently, so it's not predictable. It's now Iron's sister, so we'll have to see what her story is going to be, if she's involved more or not.
Yeah, and it could be that they're writing her as a meta already.
Yeah,
that somehow this person on this Earth is a meta, and she can start off in season 2 as as Vaporlock.
Yeah.
So we'll see. That's cool.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah. So I like that, we see Iron. He's a driven man who's been through so much. And I'm so glad the writers did not go the easy route of having him, stop being the Steel we know and give in too quickly. And it took listening to Lois, listening to Dick, listening to Jonathan, as well as seeing the impact of the family to help him adjust his point of view. So I like that they really showed his character and who he is, and that it's going to take more to kind of break through. So I like that.
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of already brought this up before, but he definitely was not on board to save Superman. Like, I found it interesting that he was convinced that Superman essentially, like, called him in, because that's kind of like what Lois says, you know, to make the tough choice. And I mean, maybe he did. Maybe, you know, he thought, like, if it got to that point, you know, Irons would be the only person that would do the right thing. But I am glad that he tried to, you know, reach him one last time and try to save him without killing him. I mean, granted, I don't think any of us thought that they were actually going to kill him on his own show, but still, they made a good show of it.
It'll just be and Lois.
Right? I know.
But you make a good point there. Like, did Superman actually call or give Lois the signal to call him because he knew that he can't fight this, and Irons is the only one that can stop him? Because there's a moment when they were fighting and they were on the shoreline there, and Clark was struggling with it. He was actually saying to Irons, "I can't stop it. You've got to do it. Just do it." Like when he had the missile point, he's saying, "Just do it. I can't stop this." So he was giving up and telling Irons to finish him off at that moment, and that's when Irons was like, "Oh, wait a second, maybe I can."
Yeah.
Now, in regards to Steel, I mean, he was a hero in the comics. He was never, from what I know of him, he never had this not criminal, but kind of a darker grayish area side to him. So I think it was more that he couldn't shake what his Superman did to his family on his Earth that wasn't letting him listen to everyone. I think emotions were kind of controlling his choices here. Because he also states that he did lose Natalie when Superman destroyed Metropolis in 7 minutes. It only took 7 minutes, and I lost everything. I lost everybody. I lost Natalie. So maybe there is nothing left on his planet. Because we were speculating that a few episodes back that, maybe he can return to his planet and get to Natalie, and maybe she's fighting in his place right now and all that. But I don't know. That line kind of tells me that there's nothing left.
Yeah, there have been a few lines like that throughout the series so far that I kind of agree with you. I don't think there is anything left for him. So that kind of leads right into this, how he got here. So I wanted to chat a little bit about this wormhole because it seems awfully mysterious. Like, where did it come from? Did he cause it because he was using his weapon? But that I don't think that really makes any sense. But he didn't open another wormhole this time when he used it. So where did it come from? And how did he get here? Or I guess, why did he get here? We know the how, it's just the why.
Yeah.
Oh, the science, Harley. We got some science in here to figure out, eh? That haven't had this yet to talk about. So first, let's go here. It's a red solar weapon that he uses, meant to deplete Superman of all his power, which would weaken him enough so that they can kill him after. In the flashback, we see Irons flying into space in his spaceship to pull Superman away from Earth, and then he fires the missile, the red solar flare missile, into space, which then explodes, causing this red solar flare, which was supposed to weaken Superman, and I guess he would shoot him with the spaceship or whatever. But we see Superman, he's attacking the ship, and as the red solar flare comes towards him, he stops from punching the ship, lets go, and flees the scene. You see him fly back towards Earth in a real quick moment. And then right after that, we see the portal open, and Irons is still flying forward, and he's like, you see the surprised look on his face, like, what is that? And he flies through, and then you see the scene of mountains and everything show up, and poof, just like that, he's here on our Earth. So, like you said, Harley, did the missile open the portal? Because it doesn't make sense. Or was it that the crisis wave just happened to come through at the same time, and the two of them together, the missile exploding and the crisis wave, somehow causes a wormhole to open? Because I'm with you. I don't think the missile alone causes it because of what you just said. The one that they fired off here, right in Earth's atmosphere, didn't open a portal at all.
Yeah, I agree. I think this had more to do with Crisis than the missile. I don't know that John even knows that Crisis happened and his world doesn't exist anymore. Maybe he does, but I kind of doubt it. I just wish we had a clear explanation of how and why the portal opened, and to say yes, it was Crisis, or some type of clue to why, to give us, so we can get past it. But I don't know that we'll get that, but who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know that we will, because of how surprised Iron looked when the portal did open. His eyes went like the size of saucer plates. He had no clue what was going on. So I don't think he's going to ever know. Unless while the time he's been here on our Earth, he's been trying to figure it out. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I don't think he, whatever he did, he was not intentionally trying to go anywhere, as we kind of originally speculated. That's for sure. The only other thing I can think of is that it was either the Monitor or Oliver that brought him here for some reason. I guess maybe they knew they would need him for when this eventually happened on, I guess, Earth Prime now.
Yeah.
That's the only other thing.
That's a possibility too. Yeah, we need explanation. That's it.
I don't know. Maybe we'll get it. Maybe we won't. I wasn't sure we would. I'm surprised we saw that much. So maybe there is more coming. Maybe they do tie all this together. So.
Yeah, you're right. I was not expecting a flashback scene to show us anything of that. So it was cool. We got that at least.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to Edge, because kind of. This is where a lot of the questions came in for me, a lot of the theorizing at the end of this episode. So I'm left wondering, what is Edge's mission? Like, why was he, why truly was he sent to Earth? And what is his plan? Because it's all very confusing. He leaves with the Eradicator. He does his solar flare, whatever, to, I assume, set it off. And I guess release all the Kryptonians on the inside. Or it doesn't make sense he would be destroying them, but maybe that's what he did. And then at the same time, John Henry shoots his anti-Kryptonian missile red solar flare thing at him. And to me, it was unclear which exploded, the missile or the Eradicator, or both.
Yeah. Well, I got an answer for you, Harley.
Oh, good.
Because thanks to the wonders of video editing, when I have to get our sound clips and stuff out, I can once again look at it frame by frame. And to answer it, Edge blows up the Eradicator before the missile gets there.
Okay.
You see a purple-blue explosion, and then a split second after that, you see the missile hit, and then a red explosion. So whatever he was trying to do, he succeeded, then gets knocked out by the red flare. So now I'm with you. Why? What was he doing, and why? Because the last time we saw Superman do this was, blow it all up to we saw what Superman did, blow it all up so they all lose their powers. Why would Edge be doing that? I mean, this Eradicator was a little bit different. It wasn't the stone that he was blowing up. It was... I don't know what it was, but I'm just thinking. I mean, it's going to lead into the next point of what came at the end of the episode. But at that moment in time, what was he doing? Why? Because what did he say when he leaves the cave? He says goodbye, Father, and it's all done and over. It's like they were giving up. But then he obviously had a plan, because he's flying up to space to blow this thing up. But there's something, and this is what ties into what you guys are thinking, that maybe there's more to it, and we just didn't see it yet.
Yeah. My thoughts were, he exploded the Eradicator, absorbed all the Kryptonians in it, and now how is that going to lead Krypton being restored and all those souls and no bodies? I have no clue, but I think he has basically got all those Kryptonians inside of him and all of their strength and things like that. But how that's going to lead to that plan being fulfilled, I have no clue.
Yeah, and I think that's the weird part about this, is because even though at the end we see that he's been captured, he looks extremely assured of himself, almost to me like this was part of the plan all along. Kind of like when we were saying a few episodes ago, like, why is this happening? Why is this happening? And it was just part of his plan. It just all worked in. So my question is, like, what is the end game? What is his true mission that his father sent him here for? That's what we're building to.
because his dad at the very end, that's what it was. His dad says, "You're going to be the sole reason why Krypton dies," and that's when he's like, "I'm out of here. Goodbye, Father," and he grabs the thing and goes. And so that's an interesting. I hadn't thought of that because I'm sitting here going, "What's going on with him? He's in that kryptonite encased jail cell." And he has those glowing blue-white eyes at the end. And like you said, he looks so confident in himself. What does that mean? And so I only thought, maybe his dad is the one that took him over. But then you bring this up. Maybe he absorbed all the Kryptonians. And that is scary. Because does that make him 10 times more powerful because he has all of them?
He has a lot of knowledge. Yeah. He would have a lot of knowledge.
Yeah,
exactly. So interesting and scary. I mean that maybe helps this episode by the very end. And now in thinking of that as being a possibility, and it's like I thought they sped this episode up too much and solved it too soon. And it's like, well, you know what? We left you on a cliffhanger. We're gonna resolve this moment. Superman's not really gonna be turned. But that's not the big problem that you think it is, because we have a bigger problem for the next couple episodes, and that's Edge being full of 35 Kryptonians. So now what are you going to do? So it's like, here's a bit of a big moment, but it's not the biggest one. So just wait for the next one. That might make this better. It's yeah.
We'll see.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So we had another player in our episode this week, and so we had Diggle in this episode. Yay. And I kind of wanted to give a breakdown. So we have seen Dig appear 3 times in the DC shows, and I'm not counting Legends because that wasn't Dig, but David playing a person. So in the shows where he was actually playing Dig, I would rank this number 2 for me. Flash would be number 1, this is number 2, and Batwoman would be number 3. I think Batwoman will probably move down once Supergirl comes into the mix. We'll see how it plays. But I kind of wanted to talk about this timeline and the story of his appearance.
Well, good, because I don't think all of our listeners are watching all of the shows like me and Harley aren't watching all of the shows. Yeah. So this will kind of give us a good roundup. So, yeah, good.
Right. So I think this appearance of Dig happened first because he was talking about being done with the hero life. He talked about the glowing box. He talked about those type of things. It leads me, and the reason it kind of leads me there is because it makes it sound like the Green Lantern ring is known to Sam, and maybe it's at Argus, because he mentions it like it's no big thing to Sam. But in this episode, he had no indications that I can remember of pain in his head. Now, Batwoman will be next, because in Batwoman, he's in the show very briefly, and he's in Gotham to get his head checked out by the top doctors there. In the Flash would happen after that, because he said in the Flash that the doctors in Gotham found no issues. And in the Flash episode, he hears a voice calling to him about other worlds. Cecile reads his mind about, and senses the conflict. This leads me to believe that his final appearance in this season of shows will be his acceptance of the Green Lantern, and he's going to help Supergirl and her team in the process. So it makes the most sense because in that show, because you have Jean, who has years and years of experience and knowledge of space, so he might have encountered Green Lanterns. You've got Supergirl, and you've got Brainy from the future, and Brainy maybe can help him realize he needs to give in and accept because he's got that knowledge of the future. So that's my reasoning. So they just kind of got aired out of order, but that's kind of where I'm seeing things.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree they got aired out of order. I mean, especially like this appearance should have come before his Flash appearance. I think they're clearly building up to the big reveal on Supergirl. I think maybe like the Flash, he's probably going to play a bigger role there. And he definitely had a smaller role here, and it definitely seemed out of place for that reason after his Flash appearance. So I think with all the COVID halts, they were just forced to air this appearance out of order. Now, whether or not it came before or after Gotham, I don't really have a good sense of feeling for that. But I do kind of like your reasoning of why this maybe in theory should have come before. So,
Yeah.
See? Damn the hiatuses. Like, seriously. Because it is messing it. We're getting mini crossovers, and they're messing it up by playing it out of order.
Yeah, well, there was his appearances were supposed to be significantly bigger and more integrated, and because of COVID, they couldn't do that. And then, of course, you can't control which shows have to shut down because of COVID, and Superman and Lois had to shut down. Yeah. But they couldn't just stop airing shows, and yeah, I think that's how everything got messed up for sure.
Well, I think it's still cool though, and that makes some good sense to me from what you guys are saying. I'm actually 4 episodes behind on The Flash because it just hasn't been on the importance list for me lately. I'm so disappointed with that show this season. So I'm.
Well, let me just tell you, if the last 4 episodes, like the season finale next week, this week's episode, and the 2 before it, if the whole season had been like those episodes, it would have been a whole different series, because I'm like, where has this been all season long?
Yes, anyway. And that's exactly the type of reaction I'm reading about and stuff. So I'll get there. I just finished I know what's coming. I know the stuff that's coming, so I'm looking forward to it. But so I like how you guys order this here. It makes a lot of sense. And now I want to talk about his role in this episode of Superman and Lois, because I actually really liked it. To me, it just felt like good old Dig stopping in to help out. It was like a mini crossover guest appearance, like we've had before with all of these shows when, Flash stops by or Oliver goes to visit Barry or something. There's just a little mini crossover in it, because he fit right in and felt like he belonged with these people. When Lois goes, Dig, and she runs up and gives him a hug, it didn't feel strange. It didn't feel like they shouldn't know each other well. It all felt very comfortable. And even though it was kind of a short story for him here, I still thought it made sense story writing wise. I mean, they need Argus tech to possibly fight Superman, and that's Diggle's role. That's his position. He's in charge of Argus, and of course he's going to deliver the weapons and the tech right now. It just makes sense to me story wise. But what I also like what it did is that with everybody all season long wondering where Superman and Lois lands in the Arrowverse, having Diggle show up solidifies that it is part of the Arrowverse and the timeline that we're in and where everything is. It just kind of wrapped that all up for us. We don't have to wonder anymore.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So we might have to change our intro, because in our intro it says, in the near future, we're visiting Superman and Lois. So I might have to take that out somewhere.
Yeah. No, I think the last couple of episodes have solidified we are in present day. We are in 2021.
Yeah.
Not unfortunately. Unfortunately for our intro, but...
I think people can hand wave that bit.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is some awesome discussion, guys. Let's get into our favorite scenes.
Shape out and eagle!
Now, X-Force, you called yours Wonder Twins, and it messed me up because I've got clips in here already called Wonder Twins. So I'm trying to load it in the tab. I'm like, which one is it? Because they're all named. Oh, man.
All right, so this was Jordan and John's big heart-to-heart about Fighting Edge. So let's take a listen and then talk.
Hey, how's it looking out there today?
Damn it! How far can you hear?
Oh, I don't know. Somewhere in Australia?
Australia?
Or New Zealand? I can't tell the accents apart. Regardless, it doesn't matter. I couldn't hear that.
Okay, well, I mean, what if he just wasn't saying something and you scanned over him or...
John, I don't know. That's what I've been saying. I just got this power good enough that I'm not having a migraine every 2 seconds. Look, this isn't gonna work. Hey. Yes, it will, okay? Just try again. We've been at this for an hour, and I don't even know what I'm hearing half the time.
Look, I know it's hard, but right now you are the only one who can find him.
Yeah, but what if I can't? What if I keep trying and trying, and my powers just aren't good enough?
Jordan, you're good enough.
Really? Because that didn't stop Edge. Well, when I used my heat vision on him, I gave him everything I had, everything, and he just tossed me around like a rag doll. Then he took off with Dad. I was the only one with powers who could have done something, and I didn't.
You can do something now.
You can do something now, okay? Just focus, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love this. I love the two of them really hashing it out and being honest with each other. I like the fact that Jordan's feeling guilty about not stopping Edge, but John helps him to overcome it. I just love these two brothers working together and being there for each other. And I was a little bit leery of, okay, you're changing the timeline from one kid to two, but I think it's really working because of the dynamic of these two actors, and I just really appreciate it a whole lot.
Yeah, I'm totally with you there. It's just fun, and you can kind of relate to it. I don't have brothers myself, but I just see the brotherly connection here, and it's something that I've always wished I had, and it's just cool. It's cool to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a great scene. I agree. All right. Well, let's move into my scene. I chose Lois's confession when she tells John Henry Irons who Superman really is.
Oof. The tearful one. Here it is.
Yeah.
Can I talk to you?
Lois, I know what you're gonna say, and
No, you don't. You need to hear this. I have told you repeatedly that this world is different from yours, that our Superman is different from the monster who destroyed your Earth, that he would never turn on humanity. And you have asked me just as often how I know that for sure. I've never really answered that question, but I'm going to now. The reason I know how much Superman loves humanity is that he's not just someone I report on. He is everything to me. He is the love of my life, the father of my sons. John Superman is my husband.
Clark Kent is Superman. And your boys.
They didn't know who he really was until this year. It's part of why we moved here. I needed you to know the truth about why Superman is different here. He has a family to fight for, which means he won't give up, and neither can we.
Lois, this doesn't change anything.
How can you say that? He loves his sons. He loves me. That matters.
What about all the other sons? The other wives that'll be killed when he attacks?
He won't attack. He won't give up, which means he can be saved.
Lois, he wanted you to call me because he knew what I would do.
He knows, worst case scenario, if it comes to that you won't hesitate. Fine. I need you to believe the possibility that there's hope.
If that's what you need, then you called the wrong guy.
John.
No, Lois. Everything you were saying is just getting in the way of what needs to be done. But you were right about one thing, Lois. I will not hesitate. I saw you die. I lost Natalie. Millions of people gone. I won't let that happen again. I have a responsibility to do the right thing.
And I'm telling you that killing Superman is not the right thing. John, please, I'm begging you, don't do this.
I'm sorry, Lois.
Oh my God, she breaks my heart.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
I
good.
wanted that scene mainly for the performance of it. It was one of the moments that I had seen coming. I had thought she was going to tell him a few episodes ago, and she didn't. And I was like, she's going to tell him before the series is out. And so, yeah, I saw it coming. But man, was it such a great scene.
Oh, like I said, it's gut wrenching. Just and then she just he just says no. It's like, are you kidding me?
Yep.
Jeez, it's her last attempt. That's all she had left. And
He wasn't. He wasn't on board. Took John to break him.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which leads into my favorite scene. I call it Power of a Son, which is exactly when Jonathan walks in the tent to confront Irons, and they have that whole "you're about to kill a good dad" scene. I just loved it. Here it is.
And give me a digital read on the topography so I can find.
Do you know who I am?
I have a pretty good idea.
My name is Jonathan. Jonathan Kent. When you were at the DOD, the RV was parked at our farm. I saw a lot of videos about you there. I saw what happened to my mom. I saw who my dad was. I saw a lot about you, too. I saw about your daughter, Natalie. You seemed like a really good dad. I just want you to know. This guy you're about to kill, he's a really good dad, too.
I wish there was another way, son.
There's always another way.
I think he's taking cues from Bitsy after watching her. He's got the same quiver. It's like,
There's always another way. Me.
Yeah, I love that
Me
line.
too.
Always another way. So I got a little bonus clip here that I want to play. It's not because it's a favorite scene, but it's a talking point. I want to play it, and then we can talk about it. I think it's a good one to end our discussion on tonight. So this one is called No More Doubt.
DOD packs up, heads home. Maybe this town can breathe again. Not to mention his family. For what it's worth, Lois, about yesterday,
I know, Dad. You were just doing your job.
what I wanted to say is, I'm proud of you. When the chips were down, you still had faith. And that's what made the difference. I'm very glad you're better, Clark. I won't doubt you again.
That last part, I'm glad you're better, Clark. I won't doubt you again. I think that is the final piece of redemption for Sam, and it brings him around to now be in full support of his daughter, and they might be able to rebuild the relationship. He's not going to use the army to build defenses. It's the final moment for Sam to finally be redeemed. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that is a very good point. I think we may see others in power in the military or in the government who are going to try to override him, but I think he is on a footing where he has a much bigger understanding and is able to see the whole person of Clark, Superman, son-in-law, all of that is one person and not just compartmentalizing it like he has. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I think it helped him to see Clark, to see that, that's who he really is. Like, yes, he is Superman, but when it comes down to who he really is, like at his core, I mean, he's Clark Kent. So that's what I liked about it.
That's exactly the kind of thoughts I wanted to hear from you guys. See? Good way to end this discussion. Let's remind people about our Patreon support.
If you'd like to support our podcast, you can do so at our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/tomorrowslegends.
Yeah, we'd love you guys to take part in that and help and support all the work and time we put in this show, because you're going to get to be part of things like what is happening on Friday this week. We are having another call-in show with our Patreon supporters, and this one is Ask Us Anything, where you guys can come in and ask, whatever questions you want, whether it's podcast related, TV show related, movie related, personal related, whatever. You guys can ask us anything, and we'll get into some good discussion there. So it'll be fun, I think.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
All right, let's get into feedback.
Don't keep it to yourself now. Come on, baby, talk to us. It's feedback. Yeah.
Not only do I press play on the sound pad, but it's like I'm pressing dance button on you, because you both just start dancing. So funny. All right, where are we starting with this one, Harley?
We had a cool theory come in on Twitter. We had a lot of Twitter discussion going on for this episode, which was super fun for me, but also made taking notes difficult. But it was fun to interact with everyone. So thanks to those who participated. Yeah. Super cool. Jeff is always out there too. But we got a cool theory from @Cameron J. Arduini. Sorry if I mispronounced that. And he says, or she, I can't quite tell from the picture. Thanks. I think Edge is a pawn/field agent used by his father, who ultimately serves General Zod. If that was really Zod that took over Superman's body tonight, then he's definitely still out there, likely in John Henry Irons, because he was the closest to transfer consciousness.
Ooh.
That's a very interesting theory. Wow.
I like the idea, but when Irons showed up at the end of the episode to say you guys deserve some good family time, I didn't get a sense that there was anything sinister behind him there. So I like the theory, but I didn't sense it. So I don't know. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I definitely think we haven't seen the last of Zod. So however they do it, I am curious about it.
Yeah, but I also like the point about Edge being just a pawn for General Zod, because General Zod really is the ultimate ruler of the Kryptonian stuff. So, that I mean, even Edge's father was working for Zod. So, yeah. Awesome. Next up is an email from Comic Geek Kev.
Kev says, "Hey, Legends, I'm assuming that someday this show will have a bad episode and I'll feel let down. This episode was not that episode. I think my only problem is that the appearance of Diggles certainly seems to solidify that this is the prime Arrowverse. Especially some of the conversations he had, Oliver, glowing boxes, etc. If that's the case, where's Supergirl?" Agreed. And as much as it was great to see him again, what's the point of David Ramsey showing up on all of these shows? Well, hopefully I gave you some insight, but we'll see. But I digress. So we got to see how Irons ended up on this Earth. It would be cool to see if they can recreate the event and send help back to his world. It looked as though Cal might have been affected by the red solar weapon. So, yeah, that would be cool to see. We don't know. We're speculating that his world is gone, but who knows? I had completely lost the thread that Irons didn't know that Superman was Clark, but I understand why he believes it doesn't matter after what he had seen. Yeah. I was surprised that there was blowback on Lana's family from what Edge did, not because there shouldn't be, but because most shows probably would not have bothered with it. But this show went there, and they should. It was a major blow to the community, and they're going to take it out on someone. Yep. Superman becoming Zod. Now, there's a story I don't think that has been done before. I could be wrong after so many years of stories, but I don't remember anything like it. Another reason I love this show. Hoechlin did a great job in a performance that could have been really cheesy, but came across as someone really suffering and fighting. The performances in this show just continue to be stellar. I'm kind of surprised that they brought this part of the story to a quick conclusion quickly. I know our Edge is still a threat, but the Zod possession looks to be over. Not disappointed, just surprised. If the show had a full 22 plus episodes, I'm guessing it would have gone on longer. But I'm looking forward to what's coming next. As much as I love these superhero shows, sometimes shorter seasons work better. Agreed. Mm-hmm. I think if you can do a 22 season ep, it's just too long. And I think this show, the quality, like it and Stargirl, they just work better with shorter seasons. So I agree with you, Kev. Kev says, I give this episode 9.8 out of 10 Kryptonian exorcisms. Until next time, Comic Geek Kev.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kev.
Yeah, I just want to go all the way back to his first paragraph. That we forgot to bring in that Diggle actually does say Oliver, which is cool. That also really solidifies everything. And I just like that Diggle would mention it because Oliver was his best friend, his brother. So I just made it. That's just what made things feel so comfortable. Now, I thought we answered this whole thing about Supergirl. I thought on her show she's been in some phantom zone this entire season, which would explain why she's not showing up anywhere.
Yeah, the timing is the issue. We just don't know. I mean, we don't know that the Phantom Zone was happening at this point in the show. It's just weird. I mean, it would be if they were running concurrently and the Phantom Zone episodes were happening while this fight was going on, it would be totally different. But once again, shakes fist.
All right, next one is an email from Dad L. Take them away, Harley.
All right, hello, Super Fam. This episode was a solid return to the best superhero show on TV. Jonathan is guiding and encouraging Jordan the way his namesake, along with Martha, guided young Clark. While we haven't seen Pa Kent guide a young Clark in this show, it is an integral part of the Superman mythos, so I think it's safe to assume it happened in this iteration. As always, the brothers were fantastic. How about the return of Diggle? He's still keeping it real with the Diggle wisdom. He said what we were all thinking, you can't just kill Superman.
Yeah.
Superman was possessed by General Zod, an interesting nod, a Zod nod, to one of Superman's greatest foes. Zod has been done so many times before, so I hope this is just a nod. The evil Superman storyline was resolved quickly, but we expected that, since it has been made clear that the Kryptonian consciousness grows stronger over time and then fully takes control. Superman is the only person we've seen be able to completely resist and free himself. With cracks in my voice, I was yelling at the TV, "Fight it, Clark, fight!" What a beautiful montage they showed at this moment. Yes, it was very good. We didn't get any hint into what Edge has up his sleeve. What's the failsafe plan?
Yeah.
Did he activate the Eradicator somehow? One thing is for sure, since everything seemed to be wrapped up nicely by the end of the episode, things will get really bad next week.
That's a good point.
I give this episode 9 Stepping Outside with General Zod's. Dad L, last father of Krypton.
Yeah, good
Nice.
stuff as always. Next up is a voicemail from Perry White.
Hello, Flash, Harley, and X-Force 11. It's your friendly, intrepid reporter friend here, Perry White, with feedback for Superman and Lois' episode, Through the Valley of Death. Wow, wow, wow. To say I needed this episode after watching the last episode of Legends of Tomorrow and that clunker of a finale for Loki. What an
don't
incredible
talk about
palate
that.
cleanser. And I sorely needed something good to come on my television screen, and this episode gave it to me. I'll get my rating out of the way. I don't have anything fancy to say about it, but I give the episode a 10.
Oh,
It was darn near perfect. Had everything you needed. It was just great. And I'd just really like to say that Elizabeth Tulloch and Wole Parks gave fantastic performances. Their scenes together, they had such incredible chemistry. They were able to emote incredibly. You felt the passion, the hurt, and the heartache that both of them have been through and were going through, and it translated on screen. Just incredible. Award-winning performances, in my opinion. So I'll just leave it at that. I won't necessarily go through all of the great things in the episode, because I trust that you guys will do an incredible job as always pointing them out and obviously placing them in context. The only thing that I can really add is how this episode made me feel, and this episode filled me with hope and passion, and just a great warmth. I mean, it was just, once the episode was over, it was just a great feeling. One of the better things that I liked about the episode was its ability to display and demonstrate someone's ability to change. And by that I'm talking about Wole Parks' character, John Henry Irons. Obviously, coming into the episode, he was singular in his focus and his determination in terms of what needed to happen to Superman, and that he needed to put him down. In most of our real everyday lives, we often see that most folks who have an opinion or an idea about something, it's incredibly difficult or darn near impossible to get them to change their mind. And most often when someone is trying to either change someone's mind or get them to see a different point of view, they do it through violence, whether it's physical violence, whether it's threat of violence, or through some other act of aggression. And in this episode, we saw Diggle, we saw Lois, and we saw Jonathan, all able to, maybe not by themselves, but together, able to reach John and able to shed some light on the broader situation. And through their words, through their actions, and through their compassion, were able to get him to see a different side of things and get him to change his approach and change his tactics. And it was just really nice to see that play out on screen in such a way. I hope that people can take away from it a better way to try and reach people and get them to understand your point of view without necessarily having to resort to violence or threats of violence or aggression to get people to see what it is that is important to you and why it should be important to them. So that's what I significantly take away from this episode. Going forward, obviously the I guess tease at the end with Morgan Edge being in prison and hearing the voices of parent Kryptonians that he somehow released with his heat vision and was able to take into himself. I've heard and sort of read theories that it's sort of the beginning of him taking on the quote-unquote living eradicator persona. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm incredibly knowledgeable about what all that means, but what I can tell you is I am excited to see what happens next, because this show has such incredible actors and actresses. It has writing that is worthy of their skill and talent. It has direction that's been impeccable. It has computer-generated graphics and special effects that are certainly on par. Well, let me take that back. Certainly better than most of anything we've seen in the CW verse so far, and certainly on par with some of the better shows that you'll find on Disney Plus or Netflix. Like I said, I give this episode a 10. My only nitpick, and I don't even know if I want to call it a nitpick, but I've said before that this show doesn't necessarily need to bend over backwards to connect itself to the Arrowverse. However, when you have a character like Diggle, who is from Arrow, and an original character, and he's making mention of Superman and talking about he's the best that we have, is just really sort of jarring to hear him make that statement when there has been no reference on this show to any degree really about Supergirl. And now I'm going to go back to the theory that I had before, that this show somehow, some way takes place at a different point in time than the other shows do, and I can only assume and I can only imagine that it takes place in a time when perhaps Kara Zor-El has left this timeline for whatever means. I still say that she's going to go to the 31st century and be with the Legion of Superheroes, but that's just my own personal theory. And like I said, that's sort of really my only nitpick, and I wouldn't even call it a nitpick. It certainly does not detract from the score that I'm giving this episode. The other thing that I was particularly interested in, obviously, is when you have a show that's 42 to 43 minutes, you don't really, there's no such thing as sort of wasted time or a wasted idea, right? So the fact that when the episode started, John was looking for his sister, or at least the version of his sister on this earth, we obviously know that that will ultimately lead somewhere. I don't know where it will lead, but I'm kind of sort of interested to see where that's going to go. And in the same way, when Diggle was having the conversation with Sam Lane about the fact that he was keeping information from him about the multiverse and about superpowered beings and all those things, and he said that he needed to have a conversation with him, I suspect and fully anticipate that that will come to fruition and that will lead to something narratively as well. Like I said, this episode was fantastically well done, and I give this episode a 10, and I look forward to hearing what other folks have to say about this episode, and I am incredibly excited about where this series goes. This is your friendly reporter, Perry White, making his deadline. Maybe just barely, but I made it. I'm out.
No, good thoughts as always there, Perry. I like his theory about where Supergirl might end. I know this, we don't talk about Supergirl here, but I do like his theory. It sounds pretty plausible to me, and I don't know. I think that point about why would Diggle say Superman is the best that we got, he just is. The entire DC history of all things comic book superheroes, Superman has always been at the top. He is their number one guy, and I think that's just what Diggle's referring to, as Superman is the guy, and you don't get much better than that. I know Supergirl's somewhere, underneath him in the rankings or whatever, but it's Superman. It's always been about Superman. So,
Yeah.
awesome stuff. Last up for this week is Dreamweaver. Here she is.
Hello, Superfam. Dreamweaver here with feedback for episode Superman and Lois through the Valley of Death. I'm rating this one 8 dinosaur pancakes out of 10. The tension was super palpable in this episode. Very visible stakes, fallout from previous episodes, some great moments for just about everyone, but the ending didn't stick the landing for me. And I'll get to that, but talk about the rest of the episode first. So John Irons is looking for this Earth's version of his sister and his family. That could be really interesting, especially since this Earth's version of him is dead, and I don't know what he'd do when he just shows up at his sister's door. I'd love it though if he gets some version of his family back, or if he learns that his Earth may not actually be destroyed, or that his Natalie somehow made it to this Earth, because I wonder if there's more to the story of that wormhole that brought him to Earth Prime, because that did not look like something from Crisis. He's got a lot of interesting dynamics that can happen for him moving forward. And I continue to love the brothers' dynamics. They bring the best out in each other, and even through their sibling spats, they have such a supportive relationship. Another dynamic that was really nice this episode was the Cushings, hence my rating. Kyle's been a really back and forth character, but you could see both the love he has for his family and the repentance he feels he owes to the town in this episode. Emily and her family were really laying it on thick to the Cushings, somewhat understandably, but also Kyle didn't know. He just saw a businessman who was trying to help a small town suffering, and he wasn't the only one that went along with that. Nor was he the only one that made the decision to undergo the resurrection process. But they had such a sweet family moment when they were clearing the graffiti off their house. That was a really well done scene. Another really well done scene was when Clark was calling out to Jordan. That was, if I could choose best scene, that was it for me. That was some great editing back and forth between the desert and the farm, and seeing and hearing Clark's pain and desperation through that. It's A+ right there. There were so many individual standout scenes in this episode, and everyone was bringing it with the acting. Such as the other two that stood out to me is when Lois reveals to John Irons that Clark is Superman, and then when John Kent talks to John Irons about he and Clark both being really good dads. There's a lot of Johns this episode, but two things that brought it down for me. One is that they squandered yet another Diggle cameo. He basically showed up to give General Lane a verbal lashing and name drop Oliver, but nothing else. They're really baiting us with this Green Lantern stuff, and I hate to say it, but if it's even going to be Green Lantern stuff at all. He's only got one more appearance left on Supergirl for this 5-episode arc, if you could even call it an arc, and I'm wondering if we're going to get anything else substantial from that. And number 2, going to be honest, I was a bit let down at how they got Superman back. I was expecting his family to actually be there, or get to face him as Zod turned Superman. He was only truly turned for maybe a good 8 to 10 minutes of this episode. I thought there was going to be a lot more heart-wrench ahead with this specific story point, but they got him back rather quickly. I did like that Irons got to have a hero moment and tell Clark to be the one to fight, and it's because he's now seeing Superman as Clark and not just as Superman, because of his conversations with Lois and Jonathan earlier. But it felt a bit not right that the Kents weren't there, or that Lois only got to piggyback the communication off of Irons. Hey, I do go into these with expectations, so I always get a bit disappointed when something doesn't play out, but there feels like a pattern happening right now, and it started when they saved all the Turn people so easily 2 episodes ago. And now with saving Soup so quickly in this one. It feels like the writers may be afraid to commit to one of the big story points and let it breathe and play out for more than one episode. And now it's in favor of revealing something different or even bigger instead of letting this aspect of the story breathe. Because now it seems that Edge has all of the Kryptonian souls ? In him. That's what it felt like at the very end. Well, that's all my thoughts on this episode. I know it's not a full season, it's only 15 episodes, but I would like to see the writers let some story points breathe and have some multi-episode life instead of just building up to a new, bigger, and badder cliffhanger each week. That's all for now. For some reason this episode made me really hungry for pancakes for dinner, or I do order a mean takeout, so maybe I'll just get that. Until next time, your friend Dreamweaver.
Oh, man.
Breakfast
It
for
is.
dinner
So
is
I
always
don't-
good.
She is so in tune with me sometimes. I'm going to call her Flash Weaver. Never mind Dreamweaver. That's Flash Weaver. She made me think of something that we maybe never touched on way back to when Irons was going to look for his sister. The Irons of this Earth is dead. The war hero is dead. what is that going to do to her if he just shows up at her doorstep? It's going to like creep her the hell out and wonder what's going on. And then does he even tell her, yeah, I'm from another Earth? Like, that's a crazy, I guess that's a wide open doorway for them to explore on the show.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's why he was debating approaching her.
Yeah, probably.
Right.
For sure.
Well, awesome stuff all around. As always, our feedbackers are the bestest, just like this show is the bestest. So we appreciate it, guys. Now, the rest of you out there would like to send in feedback and be part of this show. This is what you got to do.
If you would like to be a part of the show, you can send in your feedback to Tomorrow's Legends Podcast at gmail.com. You can also reach us on Twitter at Tomorrow's Legends. We'd love you to join our Facebook page at facebook.com/groups/Tomorrow's Legends and become part of the community.
And that wraps us for tonight, guys. Awesome episode and great discussion, I thought.
It was a good episode.
And it's good to be back. I missed you guys.
It was just one episode.
Just one, I know. But you guys did great. I want to just publicly announce that you guys did pretty darn awesome. For an episode of Legends that was kind of you guys brought it home. You guys you were funny. You made me laugh. It was entertaining. So you did good.
Thanks.
Yeah. So the only thing I got to talk about is The Mandalore. If you guys want to listen in, we're running down to our finale of The Bad Batch real quick here. There's only a couple of episodes of that left as well, so get on board. And then if you guys are fans of Firefly, I just released a big 3-hour extravaganza about Firefly with 2 co-hosts that also had a podcast about Firefly where they watch an episode and then create their own music based on the episode, and they're a lot of fun. They're hilarious, and they brought a very special presentation of 2 of their songs to my show, which was just so amazing to have part of Cybercast. So check Cybercast out, the latest episode about Firefly if you like that. That's all I got, guys. This is The Flash signing off.
This is Harley Quinn. I'm out.
This is X-Force 11. So say we all.
Tomorrow's Legends is not affiliated with CBS, Warner Brothers, or the CW. We're a fan-made podcast for entertainment purposes only and are part of the Cybercast Network.